We're here today to voice our frustration with New Jersey Transit and Trenton that they continue to allow valuable infrastructure here in some of the most vulnerable communities to fail or be eliminated, and it's totally unacceptable to us here in Jersey City. We received notification just several days ago that another bus line that serves the southern part of Jersey City will cease to operate, and both New Jersey Transit and the bus operators seem to point fingers at each other with who's responsible, but ultimately blaming the pandemic as the cause. From our standpoint, it's not fair to leave this community without transportation that they rely upon. And when New Jersey Transit took hundreds of millions of dollars in relief on the CARES front, we view it as their responsibility to either support the private vendors or, better yet, to assume the roles themselves that New Jersey Transit actually provides the service themselves so that we don't have to have this conversation once a year. You are putting a lot of Jersey City residents in a vulnerable position, worse off than they were, and we're here to demand that New Jersey Transit steps in and corrects the situation with assuming the bus route if the private vendor will not do that. I'm going to turn it over to Assemblywoman Angela McKnight, who represents this area and has been vocal on the bus situation here in Jersey City for some time. We had a similar press conference a year ago, and it's unfortunate that we're here again. So I'll turn it over to Assemblywoman McKnight.
During this time, we are all trying to cope in the pandemic. We need the entire New Jersey community to stand together. That means residents, elected officials, and businesses like New Jersey Transit. I stand here today because I am appalled that New Jersey Transit will receive $1.4 billion in federal aid from the CARES Act and then refuse to share it with private bus carriers. The routes that these companies run are critical to residents who depend on these local bus lines. These buses take them to and from essential jobs, daycare centers, grocery stores, and other community services, as well as give people employment, which allows them to take care of their families. The number 31 bus that runs up and down Montgomery and West Side Avenue is essential to our families. Our families depend on these bus lines. The south side of Jersey City has already lost transportation. This is yet another blow to vulnerable population who lost a bus line on Ocean Avenue recently. Now, to lose a West Side Avenue bus line will leave an important population of people barely any transportation. These are working people who others depend on. They are our nurses, security guards, parents, and teachers. We can't allow New Jersey Transit to turn their backs on these passengers, especially not during a pandemic. New Jersey Transit must be a good partner to these passengers in Jersey City and throughout the state. The people who ride these buses are New Jerseyans too. I stand with Mayor Fulop and other elected officials today as long as it takes to get funds allocated to our private bus carriers during this pandemic. We need New Jersey Transit to stand with us as a partner in this state to make sure that all New Jersey bus passengers have access to much needed transportation during a time of crisis. I thank you, and now I will turn it over to my partner, Nicholas Chiaravalloti.
Good morning. Thank you, Angela. Yeah, I'm proud to stand here with Mayor Fulop and my colleagues in the Assembly, Assemblywoman McKnight and Assemblywoman Shapiro, as well as the members of the City Council who join us here tonight. Look, they've talked about the facts. The reality is that because our transportation system is crumbling, this community is negatively impacted. This is a simple issue of equity. It's an issue of equity. The reality is that it is the government's job. One of the few things the government should be focused on is providing accessible, affordable, safe transportation. Public transportation is key to growing communities like this in Jersey City. The South Side has already been impacted negatively by the need to close bus lines. The reality is we need to return public transportation to these communities. When we look around you, this is a vibrant community with people who rely on buses and public transportation to go to their jobs, to go visit their doctors, to basically explore other opportunities. The closing of this bus line will negatively impact them because it will not only increase their cost of taking transportation, it would not only increase their commute. If you think about it right now in very practical terms, if you're living down on Danforth Avenue, you're 1.5 miles away from this station here. Closing this bus line basically impacts individuals to the south and individuals to the north. So we're calling on New Jersey Transit to what we think is right and what we think is fair and invest in the public transportation system. The reality is this is not a new problem. Throughout this country and throughout this state, we've underfunded infrastructure for more than a generation. And today, cities like Jersey City are being negatively impacted. The reality is that public transportation and investing in public transportation expands opportunities for this community. And that's why we're here advocating for it. So I'm proud to stand here, and we're going to continue to fight. We're not going to take this laying down. I'm going to follow the lead of Mayor Fulop and Assemblywoman McKnight as we work with both Trenton and the private provider of this service to try to save this service and bring it back. We need public transportation in this community. Am I introducing the next? Next up, I'd like to introduce my colleague in the Assembly, Assemblywoman Annette Chaparro, from Hoboken, who represents Hoboken and Jersey City and also serves on the Transportation Committee in Trenton.
Sorry, I'm a little short. Thank you all for being here. I don't even know where to begin. I'm gonna not echo what they already said, which was very important, but I will say this. I am appalled that we got an email, and if it wasn't for my colleagues and the mayor's quick response, I would have missed it because it was one of those emails that popped up and said, hey, by the way, this is happening tomorrow. It was that quick. And I know I'm exaggerating a bit, but not by much. I'm here, yes, of course, I'm an Assemblywoman. I am in the Transportation Committee, but I'm here more to represent the vulnerable. I am a single mom. I grew up in the Housing Authority. I know what it's like to struggle, to get from job, to keep the hustle going, to wake up and to find out that your bus line, your only bus line, is going to be gone, and you don't know that until you wait at the bus stop and find out that it is changed. A Sunday schedule for Monday through, Friday will not work. We all know what a Sunday schedule looks like. That does not work for struggling families, and we need to be here, a voice for them, because they need us, and we have to make sure that we are their voice. So we will do whatever we can. We know these are difficult times. We're not ignoring that these are difficult times, but this is not a way of letting the most vulnerable ones high and dry, go figure it out. We're not going to allow that to happen. We have to fight, and we have to make sure that the vulnerable are protected, and people need to get to work. This bus line takes them all the way to Newport Mall. They can't get to Newport Mall to shop. They can't get to Newport Mall to buy school clothes, all that stuff. We are not obviously thinking of all the consequences that come with this, and we need to come together, and I stand here with all of them, and I want to make sure that we open the door to make sure that we get these bus lines working for the most vulnerable, for those families that desperately need it, and that probably do not even know this is happening until they turn on their TV and see about this. So we will make sure that we're there for them. Thank you.
Now we will have Council President Joyce Waterman.
Good morning. I stand very frustrated this morning. And the reason why I'm so frustrated is because I received calls and letters that this bus company will no longer exist. And to me, that's really sad because at all that the people are facing right now with the pandemic, there was a decision made higher up somewhere that said the bus route for 31 was no longer necessary. So I echo what my colleague says, but I want to reach out to the American people because I believe there is power in numbers. This is happening to Jersey City today. It can happen in your community tomorrow. So what I would encourage you to do is put pressure on New Jersey Transit. Let me say that again. put pressure on New Jersey Transit, because the less vulnerable people are the ones that's being affected, and they are the ones that's keeping the higher-ups with their jobs. So let's put pressure on New Jersey Transit. Thank you.
We have two more council people, and then I'd like to bring up one of the riders that reached out to us. The councilwoman for Ward B is Mira Prince Airy. She represents this particular area. Turn over to Mira.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be brief because my colleagues that have spoken before me have pretty much laid it all out for you. This is incredibly frustrating. I found out about the change in the bus line from a resident, not from ANC, not from anybody at the state, not from New Jersey Transit, but from a resident. Then I start getting more emails and more phone calls about this. There is a huge disconnect in a time when we should all be working together. This bus line takes people from Danforth all the way downtown. It connects neighbors on the south side of the city to the light rail station. These lines are vital. We don't have many of them. We're in a very transit-poor area, and it's an area that also has issues with parking, and the best way that you can get people out of their cars is to get them onto buses. And you know, it's times like these where government should be working for the people, not against the people, and they should be collaborating together.
And last, before we have Ms. Ross, who's a rider, I want to bring up Denise Ridley, who's the councilwoman for Ward A.
Good morning. I'm Denise Ridley, the councilwoman for the Ward A section of Jersey City. This is the second bus line that has started in Ward A and traveled to downtown that we are talking about losing in about a year, maybe a little over. We did a good job at the city level with trying to find new forms of transportation. Many of you were at press conferences for our ride program of VIA. But there's only so much that we can do to subsidize the bus lines that we are missing. It is imperative that my residents in Ward A have access to the rest of the city. This is impacting their transportation. This is cutting them off from PATH services. This is cutting them off from ferry services. And we want all the residents in Jersey City to be able to move around. This is probably the fastest growing city in the state, and it is very important, super important. One of the most important issues is that we have transportation to be able to connect all of our neighborhoods and to get our residents to work, to school, and wherever they need to go. So we're really here today to say that we need cooperation. We're tired of empty promises, and we need New Jersey Transit to step up. We need collaboration with our private bus companies, and we need as much transportation as we can get here in Jersey City. Thank you.
Last, I want to bring up Latrenda Ross. Latrenda is one of dozens of riders that reached out to us expressing concern about the impact this will have on her life and her ability to commute around Jersey City. We asked her to come here to share a couple words. So, Ms. Ross.
Good morning. My name is Latrenda Ross. I'm a resident of Jersey City. First, thank you to Mayor Fulop for inviting me as a guest speaker. Thank you to our public officials and members of the community. I am delighted to be here to tell my personal story. I moved to Jersey City last year after living in Hoboken for 43 years. I was super excited about the move, even though Jersey City is my birth city. And even ecstatic to learn that a bus leaving from Newport Mall was convenient enough to take me back and forth to work. I now can get to work anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes instead of an hour. Woohoo! I was in heaven. I even told my family and friends that God is so good and it's a blessing. God is still good even now because Mayor Fulop in Jersey City heard me this past Friday. As my daughters tell people, my mother writes letters. There were 22 letters sent by email to various public officials and social media postings regarding the suspension of the 31 Newport Mall bus. The two words to remember me from today are frustrated and disappointed. I have been frustrated and disappointed completely and utterly hearing about the 31 Newport Mall bus. Absolutely worried about getting to and from work. In Jersey City should be the last thing on my mind or anyone else. How dare any bus company stop services the only transportation service that travels from Danford and Westside to Newport Mall. The bus service suspension was not 2 months away or to stop at the beginning of the new year. The suspension was formalized yesterday. The 31 Newport Mall is the only bus leaving the Newport Mall area to transport me and others back and forth to work, doctor's appointments, shopping, visiting family and friends, and not to mention the home health aides who have patients. Any lack of transportation for anyone, let alone our students, elderly, and disabled persons, is inhumane. And we as a community deserve better to get from point A to point B. Our community depends on the 31 Newport Mall bus and every other bus to be useful, safe, and timely. No, the 31 Newport Mall bus should not work on a modified Sunday schedule set to me yesterday after noticing the bus while I was riding in the VIA. I could not believe what I saw, but then again, I could because I am quite sure the company got an earful from my captivating Jersey City officials. I now was told by the company the 31 Newport Mall bus is now working on a modified Sunday schedule. My thoughts? Modified Sunday schedule does not help riders and me who need the bus starting at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. The first bus leaving from Danford and Westside Avenue is at 8:30 a.m. And again, frustrated and disappointed. Let us stop our community from being frustrated and disappointed and connect people to ensure our community can get around, which is essential to everyday life. Thank you again, Mayor Fulop, and our public officials and community members. Again, my name is LaTrenda Ross.